Hey friends, welcome to today's episode. We're so excited because today I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite DIY home fragrance tips and ideas with you, made from simple ingredients and readily accessible materials. We're going to be using essential oils to create our fragrances, and with the ideas that we share today, we're going to help you up your hosting game and delight your friends at your events. Let's get started. So one of the benefits of DIY home fragrance is, obviously, it can be very budget friendly. Another one of the benefits is that we have a lot more control over the fragrances that we create for our home. Whether our preferences change, whether seasons change, it makes it a lot easier for us to create things that complement whatever it is that we have going on in our house. So the first thing we're going to do is a reed diffuser. Items that you're going to need for the reed diffuser are, you're going to need a vessel of some sort. So this is a little glass vase that I got. This is a thrift store purchase. It was 50 cents. So this is what I'm using for my reed diffuser. You're going to need the reeds that go into the diffuser. I got these online. They're readily available. There's a lot of varieties, so those are easy to find. You're going to need your essential oil. I'm going to be using Peppermint for this one. Kind of my scent palette for the coming summer months involves peppermint, so I'm going to be using Peppermint. You're going to need your carrier oil, and so for my carrier oil, I'm using a blend of sunflower and coconut, so that's my carrier oil. You'll need a funnel, and you'll also need a measuring spoon, because we're going to be measuring a third of our essential oil into the vessel. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a third of a teaspoon of our essential oil to the vessel. So let's do that. And then once you have the essential oil in, we're going to fill the vessel about 3/4 of the way up with our carrier oil. So that's next. All right, there we go. And once we've got that in, all we have to do is add our diffuser reeds into the vessel. It'll take them just a little bit to absorb the oil and the fragrance up into them, and then all you have to do is find your favorite spot where you want to place it. That's it. All right, let's go on to our next. So our next technique is also very simple. This is an oil diffuser jar. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a scented mixture that's diffused out of a jar. So for this, you're going to need a mason jar, and you want to get one that has, it's the typical canning type mason jar that has the lip on the inside of the lid. So you want to make sure you have a typical canning jar. So we'll need a jar. You're going to need baking soda, and then you're going to need a piece of fabric that we use to go over the top of the jar. So I picked, this is actually fabric that I got in India in January on my trip there, and it goes really well with kind of the decor of my living room. So I'm going to use this fabric for the top of my jar. All right, let's do this. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut about an 8-inch square of your fabric. So let's do that. So you're going to want to be sure and use pinking shears when you cut your fabric, because we want to make sure that the edges don't ravel on the piece of fabric that we're using on our jar. So just make sure you've got some pinking shears to cut your fabric with. Perfect. So what we want to do is we're going to take the lid off of our jar, get our baking soda, and we're going to fill our jar about halfway with baking soda. Now, once we have our jar half full, we're going to take our essential oil and we're going to put 15 drops in with the baking soda. So after you've added your essential oil to the baking soda, you're going to put the lid on with the top on the jar. Put your lid on. And now we're just going to shake it up really good. So what we're doing is we're just mixing all of that oil in with the baking soda. So shake it really good. Pretend like it's a cocktail. All right, once we've got it shaken up, you're gonna take the lid off and you're gonna remove this top, and then, oh, it smells so good. Then you're gonna take your square of fabric and place it over the top of the jar. And then you'll put the ring of the lid back on over your fabric. So now we've contained the powder, but because of the fabric, the fragrance can come out of the jar. So you've created a jar-style oil diffuser. And then we just place it wherever you want in your home. So there's our second technique. All right, so the next idea I'm going to share is a no-sew fragrance sachet. So to make this, what you're going to need is you're going to need some 100% cotton fabric. You're going to need a round guide. I'm using the lid to one of my saucepans that's more or less 10 inches in diameter. So you're going to need that. You're going to need rice. You're going to need a 1/3 cup measuring cup. And then you'll also need a bowl to mix in. And you're going to need those pinking shears again to cut our circle up. So, and of course, our essential oil fragrance. So what we will do is we're going to start by cutting out our fabric that we will use to make the sachets. So we have our fabric cut that we're going to make the sachets with. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to put 1/3 cup of rice into our mixing bowl, and we'll do 1/3 cup for each of the sachets. I'm going to make 3 sachets, so we'll put a full cup. So. All right, so now that we have our rice in the bowl, we're going to add our essential oil. And as I mentioned, I am using this Lavender Chamomile as the signature fragrance for my guest room for this season. You want to put in about 10 drops per sachet. So for this, we'll put in about 30 drops. So here we go. Go 30 plus or minus. Once you've got the oil in with the rice, you want to stir that up really, really good. You want to make sure you get oil over all of the rice. So now, as we put the sachets together, you want to make sure that you put the right side of the fabric down so that this is the inside. So we go here, and then we take our 1/3 cup. There we go. Doesn't have to be exactly precise. So there's our 1/3 cup of our oil and rice. We put that in the middle of the sachet, just like that. And then we pull the edges up around, just like this, all the way around. Then we just kind of gather that up to the middle, like that. Gather that in. Perfect. And once you've got that gathered, we can give that just a little bit of a kind of a twist to hold it together. Then, and I didn't mention this when we were starting, but you want to have some strings pre-cut. So we want to take our string and we'll wrap that around a couple of times. Just get that nice and tight so it holds it together. And once that string's around, then we'll go ahead and tie a knot. And then that gives us our scented sachet. And this is one of the things I use in my guest room. So I always have these available when my guests arrive so that they have the option to use them when they're putting clothing into the drawers in my guest room. And if they don't use them there, it's a nice offering for them to take with them when they leave. So I always have these in my as part of my welcome for my guests. Okay, so the next technique I'm going to share is one of my favorites. So technically it's a pillow mist, but really it can be used anywhere that you just need a home fragrance for some fragrancing or, introducing some fragrance into a space. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a spray bottle, a glass spray bottle. You're going to need vodka. Don't drink too much when we're making this. You're going to need distilled water. You'll need a funnel for getting it into the spray bottle. And then you're going to need a tablespoon and a half teaspoon for measuring. All right, let's put it together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put 1 tablespoon of vodka into our spray bottle. There we go. So we got our tablespoon of vodka. Now we're going to add our half teaspoon of essential oil. And then we'll fill the rest with our distilled water. Is that ready? So we'll add our distilled water. All right, so once we got our lid on, just give that a good shake, mix all those ingredients together. And like I said, technically this is a pillow mist, but this is great to use anywhere in the home where you want to add some fragrance. All right, let's move on to our next one. All right, so if you remember from our last episode, which was tips for hosting in the summer months, we talked about replacing our warm welcome with more of a cool arrival, something refreshing for the season. And if you remember, I mentioned considering to do a cool towel for guests on arrival. So I'm going to share with you how I do those. So these are 100% cotton washcloths. So I'd already soaked them and then kind of wrung them out really good and folded them. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our pillow mist or our home fragrance spray, and we will unfold these flat, so it's nice and flat. And then we will spritz it with our pillow mist. So we saturate it, make sure we get all of that nice kind of chamomile and lavender scent in there. Then what I do is I fold them in half, and then fold them in half again, and then roll them. So we have a nice rolled towel that we can present our guests. So I'm going to go ahead and do all these. So this is one of my favorite things to offer guests on arrival, especially over the summer months. A nice, cool hand towel, good for hands, for face, just very refreshing. And the nice thing about this is also you can make these ahead of time, and then I brought along a Ziploc bag. It's really easy to take them and place them into a Ziploc bag, pop that into the fridge, and then you'll have them at the ready anytime you're having guests. So this is one of those things that's nice. You can prepare it ahead of time, and then you've always got it. They will eventually dry out, so I wouldn't try to make them too far in advance, maybe up to a week, but it's nice to have them in the fridge, and then when guests arrive, you're good to go. Okay, so our final technique that we're gonna do today is making a homemade bath salt. And if you guys remember from my birthday party and the launch of the Consummate host, my thank you gift to all my guests were these great little bags, and in them was a small jar of homemade bath salts. So I love this size of jar. This is great. It's kind of a single-use size, and I love to have these for all of my guests that are visiting me in my home. And again, they can either use it while they're here, or they can take it with them as kind of as a gift. But I love this kind of small jar. This was a bath oil that I made out of Shiva flower, which was one of the essential oils I brought from India. But what we're doing today, since we're going into summer, it's a little warmer and we want something crisp and fresh, we're going to be doing a lemon bath salt. So what we're going to need for that is we're going to need 3 cups of Epsom salts. So we have our Epsom salt, just plain Epsom salt, 3 cups. We're going to have 2 cups of coarse ground kosher salt. We're going to do 1 cup of baking soda, and we're going to do the zest of 3 lemons. So we're going to zest 3 lemons, and then we're using a lemon essential oil as well. So that's all of our ingredients. Let's put this together. So there we go. We have our bath salt mixture completely mixed up. And I'm going to show you, if you look, you can really see how the lemon zest adds such a beautiful texture and color to the bath salt and also enhances the fragrance. And now you've got this wonderful smelling offering that you can have for all your guests. All right, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope I've given you some inspiration on thinking about how you do your own home fragrancing and how the importance of a guest experience can be enhanced with home fragrance. Our manifesto moment for today is, we believe good taste transcends trends. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.